Hello, my name is Emma, and today I am going to teach you about reported speech. I have my sister here who is going to help me teach this lesson today. So what is reported speech? Well, I'm going to use my sister to show you. So I have here a speech bubble. Tell them, what is your name?
My name is Audra.
Okay. So this is what Audra said. I have it in quotations. These are her exact words. We call this direct speech. It's exactly what Audra said. Now imagine I want to tell someone else what Audra said. What do I have to do? Well, I actually will have to change her sentence. So Audra said, my name is Audra, which is direct speech. I need to change this to reported speech. We can also call this indirect speech. And this is what I've done down here. She told me her name was Audra. So if I'm telling somebody Audra's words, this is what I would say. Oh, Audra told me her name was Audra. And again, this is what we would call indirect or reported speech. So now let's look at more examples of this. Okay, so I'm going to teach you more about direct speech and indirect or reported speech. Audra, you are going to say things. You are going to say things, and this is going to be direct speech. This means these are Audra's actual words. I'm going to take Audra's words and I'm going to pretend I tell them to someone else. So I'm going to change her words to reported speech, or we can also call this indirect speech. Reported and indirect speech have the same meaning. Okay, so Audra, let's get started. How are you?
I'm happy.
Okay, so she said she was happy. So this is what I would tell someone if they wanted to know what Audra said. Oh, Audra told me she was happy. Now, I want to bring attention, and we will talk about this in a moment, to the fact that I changed the verb Audra used. Audra, what did you say again?
I said, I'm happy.
So Audra said, I am happy, or I'm happy. So that's in the present tense. You'll notice when I changed Audra's words to reported speech, I had to use the past tense. So the present tense became the past tense. She said she was happy.
Although, just to interrupt for a moment here, if you asked me how I was, I probably wouldn't respond with, I'm happy. That would be a bit odd. I would more likely say, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Or something more along that casual line.
So Audra just said a lot of words, and I'm too lazy to write down everything she said. So I'm just going to change happy to fine. It's less work this way. So let's pretend Audra just said, I'm fine. So I changed that to, she said she was fine. I can also change the verb here to told me. Audra told me she was fine. So said or told me can both work in this situation. Okay, so Audra, next question. Who is the world's best sister?
Emma is the best sister.
Oh, thank you, Audra. Okay, so there you heard it. You heard it from Audra. Audra said, I was the best sister. And so imagine I tell people this. Oh, guess what my sister Audra said? She said I was the best. So this is how I would change it. Audra said, I was the best sister. And again, you'll notice I had to change the verb. So Audra said, Audra, say what you said again. I like to hear it.
Let me read what you wrote. Emma is the best sister.
So Audra said, Emma is the best sister. I changed the is in her direct speech. I changed it to was in the reported speech. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this after we go through some examples. All right, Audra, ask me a question.
How are you?
Okay. So now I want to report the question Audra asked me. So I can say, Audra asked me how I was. Her actual question was, how are you? Which is in the present. I had to change the verb to the past. She asked me how I was. All right, let's look at another example. Tell me, Audra, what's the weather like tomorrow?
It will snow.
Okay, so Audra said it will snow. Those are her exact words, so direct speech. When I change it, I put Audra told me that it would snow. So you'll notice I changed the verb from will to would. And I'll explain that in a moment. Let's look at one more example. And the main point I want you to realize here is that the verbs change from Audra's speech to reported speech. Okay, Audra, have you ever been to England?
I have been to England.
Okay, so Audra said, I have been to England. She's using the present perfect tense. So when I report what Audra said, I have to change the tense. Audra said she had, so not have, had been to England. So if I'm telling somebody else, I would change the verb here. So let's find out how we change the verbs and why we change the verbs. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how different grammar tenses change from direct speech, which is the speech that somebody actually says, to indirect or reported speech, which is the speech we use when we're telling somebody else someone's words. So Audra is going to say the direct speech, and then I'm going to change it into indirect speech. And we're going to pay close attention to the grammar and the verb changes. So Audra, first we're going to look at the simple present. Can you say this sentence?
I am.
So I am is the simple present tense. If I want to tell somebody what Audra just said, I change the simple present tense to the simple past. So I can say, Audra said she was. Now let's look at another example. The present progressive or the present continuous is when we have our auxiliary here, like am, are, is, and we have our verb with ing. Audra, can you say the present progressive sentence here?
Sure. I am going.
Okay. Audra said she was going. So you'll notice that this M, when we're reporting what Audra said, it becomes the past progressive tense. So we use she was going. Let's look at another tense and see how it changes in reported speech. Oh, the present perfect, the tense that many students have trouble with. So let's see what happens to the present perfect when we change it from direct to indirect. Audra, tell us this present perfect sentence.
I have been.
Okay, so I have been is an example of the present perfect. What does it become? It becomes the past perfect. We can say she had been. So you might be noticing a pattern by now. Whenever there's the present here, we go back one past. So this is usually in the present, and this is the past. And the reason this is happening is because Audra, when she talks, she's saying something in the present tense. When I report what Audra said, I'm actually reporting on something that already happened. So this might be a little bit confusing. That's okay. The main thing to remember is the present becomes the past in reported speech. So let's look at the simple past. Uh-oh. So what happens when we have Audra say something in the past tense? What does that become? Let's find out. Can you say this?
Sure. I went.
Okay, so now if I want to change Audra's past tense sentence to reported speech, it becomes the past perfect as well. She had gone, because this is more in the past. All right, so she said she had gone. What about if we're talking about the future and Audra says something using will? Audra, can you say this?
Sure. I will do it.
Thank you, Audra. What happens to will? What does will become? Well, will becomes would. That's right. Would is more of the past. So will turns to would, and it becomes Audra said she would do it. So this might be confusing to you. It might look a bit difficult, but the more you practice, the easier this gets. My advice to you is first learn the verb tenses you already know. So if you don't know the present perfect, just ignore it. Focus on simple present or present progressive or simple past and learn how to change those sentences into reported speech first. We're now going to look at a couple more examples of reported speech and how we make these sentences. Okay, so let's now practice what we learned. Audra is going to say some things, and you are going to change the verb to make it reported speech, or also called indirect speech. So Audra, you can say your first sentence.
This is actually true. I have tattoos.
Okay. So Audra said, what did Audra say? Let's change this. She said she blank tattoos. So the verb Audra used, Audra, can you say it again?
Sure thing. I have tattoos.
Okay, so you'll notice the verb she used was have, which is in the simple present tense. So what does that become? Well, if you said had, you are correct. The simple present turns to the simple past in reported speech. All right, let's go for our next sentence.
I like books.
Okay. So what did Audra say? Imagine we want to tell somebody what Audra said. We could say, she said she blank books. Audra, say it one more time.
I like books.
Okay, so the verb Audra used was like. That's in the present tense. So we need to change the verb to the past tense. So we can change this to, she said she liked books. And notice ed, because it's the past tense. Okay, Audra, third sentence. Tell us something else.
All right, according to this paper, I'm filming.
Okay, so what is Audra doing right now? She just said it. Audra, say it again.
I'm filming.
Okay, so she said she blank filming. So this is an example of a present continuous sentence Audra said. Audra said, I am filming or I'm filming. So present continuous becomes past continuous, or we can call this present progressive. They're the same thing. We have two different grammar words for them. Present progressive becomes past progressive. So she was filming. Okay. Number 4.
This one is also true. I moved to the US.
Okay. And can you say that again one more time and really pronounce move with the ed? Wink, wink.
I moved, wink, wink, to the US.
Okay. So Audra said moved. So that means it's a past tense word. So what happens? What does the past tense become when we change it to reported speech? She said she had moved. Sorry, I can't fit it on. So it actually becomes the past perfect. She had moved. Audra said she had moved to the US. All right, number 5, Audra. What will you do tomorrow?
I will go to the mall.
Okay, so Audra said she will go to the mall. So what does will become when we're reporting her speech to someone else? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a W as well. She said she would go to the mall. So Audra said, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, this one is not true. I would not go to the mall so close to Canadian Boxing Day.
Okay. Well, so now let's go for question number 6.
Okay.
Audra, what did you study?
I have studied English literature.
Okay. So say that one more time.
I have studied English literature.
So Audra just used the present perfect tense. She said, I have studied English literature. Is that true, Audra?
That is actually true. I spent 4 years studying English literature and reading books.
Okay. So now imagine we want to tell somebody what Audra just said. We can say, she said, she. So we turn the present perfect tense into the past perfect tense. She had studied English literature. All right, so let's look at one more thing. All right, Audra, tell us the last sentence.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, said Audra. So we can say, she said, thanks. I'm going to just cut it out a little bit. So Audra said thanks, and I want to say the same thing. Thank you so much for watching. I know we covered a lot, and I know reported speech and direct speech can be a little confusing. So I recommend you come and try our quiz at www.engvid.com to practice what you learned today. Remember, practice makes perfect. And I also want to, I'd like you to subscribe to my channel because I know that there's so many great resources where you can learn things about pronunciation, grammar, reading, writing, all sorts of different videos on many topics. So thanks again for watching, and thank you for helping us today. And until next time, take care.